Hi, everyone. You're live with Necee. I am your host, Opal Bailey, and I have with me a special guest. Her name is Marilyn Sampson, and she will share with you her life story. Not only is she a caregiver, but she's also received a caregiver as well to take care of her family. So welcome to my show, Marilyn.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
I have a daughter who is a nurse, and she tells me about the different ways of caregiving and how she sees different family members, when she go and care for their children. So Marilyn and I have met through my daughter, and it has already been a pleasure meeting you as well. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
I am a registered nurse, which is my second profession, and I became a registered nurse after taking care of my special needs son, Marcus.
Okay, and what made you get into the nursing field?
I started caregiving when my mother was ill. She was diagnosed with a heart condition, cardiomyopathy. And I didn't know much about the condition, but my mother, being 45 years old, was very vibrant and a alive young lady. And all of a sudden was just stricken with a disease, had never really been sick in her life, but had been stricken with this disease. And her sister, my aunt, Ruth L. Hopkins, pretty much changed her life to come and help my mother and to stay there with my mother. She used to work days, and she started working nights in order to be there with my mom while we were at work.
Mm-hmm. So how did that get? So then she invited you or told you about nursing or how to be a caregiver, or?
Just watching my aunt and the way that she took care of my mother. And then from there, after my mother passed, went to be with the Lord. And I had my youngest son, Marcus, who was born with a heart condition called tetralogy of Fallot, which is a congenital heart defect. And after Marcus was born and 5 months into his life, then he had a open heart operation that left him in a persistent vegetative state. So to bring him home, we had to have assistants, which were nurses. And so as I saw some of the nurses coming to take care of Marcus, I thought to myself, well, maybe I can do this. And I just kind of tossed it back and forth for a while, didn't do it for a long time. And then in 2004, I decided that this is something that I needed to do for him, because my feeling was that no matter who was in the governor's mansion or who was in the White House, that I would be able to take care of Marcus. And that's why I became a nurse.
So I hear that as a caregiver, it's like a full-time job in a sense. How does that change? How does Marcus' situation being at home change your dynamic of your family?
Well, having Marcus at home, it was, as I told someone yesterday, it's a 25-hour-a-day, 8-day-a-week job. And they're like, but there's only 24 hours in a day and 7 days. I said, that's what I'm saying. You don't call in sick. You don't get vacation. It is a full-time job. And if you are working outside of the home and still have that duty at home, it's like 2 full-time jobs. But there is a reward to being a caregiver because you personally are invested in the well-being of your loved one, as my husband and I was. It did cause things where you couldn't go as freely as you would like to go, because if a nurse did not come in or if someone called out sick, then you as the parent or the caregiver would have to step in. So there were a lot of changes. There were a lot of things that had to be reworked and schedules that had to be adjusted. But we did what we had to do because that's a choice that we made to bring Marcus home with us.
So when you did mention about the option of Marcus coming home, what other option did he have that you didn't want to do, have done to him? Or
The other option that we were given is that he could have gone to I guess it was a home, a special needs home or a home for children. And that just did not sit well with me and with in my spirit, because at the time when all this happened, he was 5 months old, so he was still an infant. And so I didn't know very much about taking care of an infant that had a trach, that had a G tube, on a ventilator. I didn't know those things, but the nurses over at Arnold Palmer Hospital trained me well enough to take care of him in the absence of a trained professional. That was a requirement to bring him home, is that you had to room in the room with him for 24 hours, because if someone did not show up, if a nurse didn't come in, then you were the nurse.
So you were basically was there beside him round the clock?
Yes.
Doing everything?
Yes.
No time at all for yourself?
Yes.
No time at all for anything. So how did you handle all this, though? Because evidently, for him being 5 months old, he was a baby. He was a very, infant. So how did you handle this personally in this total change for your family?
It was very hard, and that's something that I would stress to people who are starting this journey in caregiving, or who may be at the end of a journey of caregiving. It's hard, and people will say, well, it's your family, and and all of that is true. But at some point you do start saying, like, why me? Why did this happen to me? You see other people out with their kids, and they're running and jumping and laughing and playing, and then you realize that you have a child that can't do those things. And sometimes anger comes in, and you're mad, but then finally, when you turn those things over and you ask the Lord to help you, because that's the only way that you can truly be a caregiver, is through the grace of God, as asking him to help you. And then once those feelings are real, and some caregivers will say, oh no, you shouldn't say that. But you have to acknowledge something in order to get help with it. So if you don't acknowledge that, yes, I am upset. Yes, I am angry. Why is my child like this? Why me? So once you acknowledge those feelings, then you're able to work through them. But it was a total life change, because you went from having a well child that you thought that you had, to hospital visits and specialists, and you had equipment or durable equipment people coming in, and you had nurses. So there wasn't really like your home anymore. It was your home, and then the nurses or the caregivers that came in to take care of Marcus. So sometimes it was like, I viewed it as an invasion of our home, an invasion of our privacy, because in the home it's a tight knit. We didn't live in a mansion, so it was very tight knit. So you would ultimately run into the nurses, or they were trying to come in and do something in the kitchen, getting ready for his feedings and stuff, and you may be trying to get dinner ready. Mm-hmm. And so you've got a small kitchen, and you've got 2 or 3 people in this small kitchen all trying to do the same things. But some of the nurses did just say they kind of figured out our routine, and I figured out their routine as well. And so we would just make adjustments. If he had a feeding at 6 o'clock, they would, by 5:30, they're trying to get in there and get his things together. And so I would try to avoid the 5:30 time frame in the kitchen so that they can do what they needed to do. So I'd either do what I needed to do earlier or do it afterwards when they had to get everything together for Marcus.
Wow, that's a lot of juggling.
It is. It is a lot of juggling, but God helps you.
Wow.
He's a present help.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I do agree with you when you mentioned about you can't be able to do what you do as a caregiver without God's help, because so many things you have to juggle.
Yes.
Because you didn't just have to take care of Marcus, but you had to also continue to take care of your family.
Yes.
You had to take care of your husband. You still had to go do what you needed to do in order to keep your home running. So
Exactly.
it was more than just Marcus.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I want the listeners to know just more. Oh, well, just her son.
No.
You know.
I have an older son, Miles. And when all of this happened, Miles was about 5 years old. And so sometimes Miles almost felt like he was an only child. And then Marcus was an only child, but because so much attention and time was given to Marcus, then you tried to put that extra time and attention with him as well. And also you had to juggle a marriage, and you've got to juggle trying to keep a house together and working. And it was a job. It's a job.
So how was your support system? I know you're saying that you did a lot and trying to juggle with the, with the things with the nurses and trying to make sure dinner was ready. Do you feel that having a positive support system kind of helped you as well?
Yes, I did have a great support system. My husband was very active in Marcus's care. Miles was active in Marcus's care. Even my dad, who said that he was like a nurse assistant. So he was there helping in his care. And also my aunt, whenever I would call and tell her I needed help with Marcus, if I was working, because I was working outside of the home. I'm in the home at one point. And if a nurse had to leave early or a nurse didn't show up, then I would call her. And then she would come over and sit with him so that I can finish my shift. So I'm thankful for all the great support that I had from my family. And also some of the family of Christ, too. People in the church helped out as well.
Yeah, because I have a friend who, actually I just talked to her today. And she told me that she never knew what a caregiver was, because now she's taking care of her mom.
Okay.
And her husband travels. So she's like, I never knew what a job it is caring for someone before, my mom came and lived with us. Now I can see that, oh my gosh, I need help.
Yes. Because sometimes, and it may be an unfortunate thing, that we're called the sandwich generation, because we're in the middle. We've got our parents, and then here we are, and then we have our family or our children. And so we're just like right in the middle there, where we're trying to raise our children as well as take care of our parents. So they call that the sandwich. We're the sandwich generation.
What's some of the challenges that you faced as a caregiver yourself, even with your job or with taking care of Marcus?
The main challenge that I thought was burnout and fatigue. You want to do everything that you can for them, but my suggestion to caregivers, whether they're new caregivers or caregivers who have been doing this for a while, is to make sure that you take care of yourself, because caregiver burnout is real, because we are so busy focusing on the person who needs the care that we neglect ourselves. So if they can get some type of respite, some type of time away, and that helps you, because if you get sick or you get down, then who's going to take care of your loved one? Mm-hmm. So that was one thing that I had to learn, is to take time out, take time away in order to take care of myself, since I was like a primary caregiver. So that's something that I would strongly advise and strongly admonish people to do, is to take care of themselves.
What kind of things that you had to do to make sure you were okay, make sure that you were refreshed and strong enough to continue on? What are the things that you did outside?
Sometimes I would just go to a movie. A lot of times church service would be a time of refreshing, and sometimes just going out to lunch or visiting friends and just talking. It's just sometimes just being away from the home or from wherever it is that you're doing the caregiving.